My guest this week is Matt Saul. Matt has over 15 years of expertise and commitment to redefining financial advisory services for entrepreneurial families. His practice, Saul Wealth Advisors, delivers personal CFO services that simplify wealth management and enhance decision-making. I'm Paul Blanco, and this is Small Steps, Big Wins. Matt Saul, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins. I'm so happy to have you on today and excited for you to share your journey and your story with all the listeners. So thank you for being here.
Appreciate it, Paul. Glad to be here.
Well, listen, I've probably been working with you 12, 13 years now. I know you've been in the business a little over 15, but I was always really surprised how young you actually were when you came in the business. Tell me how you actually got in and how you got started.
Right. No, great question. So, look, I was fortunate enough to go to school in the city, studied accounting, had an interest in finance. Being in the city, I had a lot of ability to get exposure to everything from corporate tax, the financial advisory world, the hedge fund world. And through those experiences had identified that, hey, I'd like to, be in the advisory. Worked for a team as an intern at Smith Barney years ago, when they were with Citi, and loved the experience. Their view was, you're going to get bored. I ended up going to work for a hedge fund, graduated from college, had the opportunity, with one of our legacy firms to start now. And, the advice I'd give to a lot of people who think about this, and I think it applies not just to business, but all facets of your life, is if there's something you'd like to do in the future and your instinct is it's the right thing to do, today's the day, right? And whether it's a small step forward. So and my father was helpful in me having conversations with him. And so I jumped with 2 feet. And frankly, I think it's easier to get into this business earlier on and grow with clients as opposed to, changing, at least for me personally. But I was always very committed to it. So.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting too. I like how you said that, but I also think that coming in off of the campus sometimes buys you enough time where you want to build a career, but you don't have to. And I think that also gave you time there. Now, you partnered up with a senior advisor pretty quickly. And then I know you purchased his book at a very young age in the business too. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, we did an earn out. Look, the other thing I'd say about me coming into the business young is that, I always had a knack for personal finance. This is very much as much a profession as a hobby. And I was always someone informally who people came to for advice. I had a unique way of looking at these things. So, it's cliche to say, but if you find something you love, it's not quite work. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had become successful enough over 3-4 years, had become a CFP and, did joint work with a lot of very senior people, had found one in particular who's to this day a great mentor of mine. And, over a period of a few years, he gained the trust in me, to give me a lot of autonomy. And we had an earn-out arrangement over, 4 or 5 years. I took on his staff, which, is with me, and some of the family members are with me. So, being young in the business, people would joke, is this like a family business of yours? And now I could say it is because I have staff people with family members, but.
Well, that's pretty funny. And it's great. And you've had a great staff there, but I feel like you came in the business, even though you were young, you also, besides growing up around, the finance and being interested in it, I feel like you were very entrepreneurial at a very young age also, and you took an entrepreneurial approach to the business. Was that something you grew up with, or is that something you just got passionate about? Because I think a lot of advisors sometimes have a hard time making the shift from being an advisor to also being an entrepreneur.
No, it's a great question. I think as a kid, for sure, I was always very industrious. I had to be. I wanted to have a say in the world and in my life that I had to take control over, right? So always have that approach. And I think I was always able to say, hey, where's there opportunity and where I could bring value, which is very much I mean, I didn't realize it then in my mid-teens or even earlier, but that's very much an entrepreneurial mindset as opposed to, okay, what time am I contributing and what am I getting back for that time? What impact can I have? And so there was a small landscaper who, as a kid, I'd ride my bike through the neighborhood and, everybody's grass was overgrown. And so I made flyers and I put them in everyone's mailbox, and all of a sudden I had a landscaping business, right? I mean, but it's that, okay, where can I use my ability, intellectually or physically, right, at that point, to contribute something? And I think that's basically what we try and do today, right? It's to be a student, to have the resources, the capability, the partnerships to deliver and demonstrate to families an element of competence and intellect and trust, right, that develops over time.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I guess it takes me to make me think now, was there a mindset shift when you look out, if you look at your career, 15 years later, how has your mindset changed from the beginning to now? Where's that play for you in the business right now?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think earlier on, it was much more insurance estate planning focused, right? Which some of it was, our affiliations as a firm over time, but I mean, for me to become a CFP, I needed like intern experience to meet the time requirement professionally. So I think a lot of my success came to a philosophy and an objectivity I was able to have in just giving holistic advice, right? And then I was just being, compensated by the products that we were putting in place. So I think as I became a CFP, there was certainly an evolution to holistic planning, me growing a skill set to be able to serve families in a very unique capacity. And then I think, at about year 10 or 12 in the business, my entrepreneurial identity really became very apparent to me. And I realized that, because you hit these different, plateaus, so to speak, right? And you're growing at different stages. And, not that I didn't love and enjoy being able to serve folks who had worked a long time, retired, but I realized that my skill set and the commonality I had with other entrepreneurs in understanding them and being differentiated from other professionals that were serving them was very unique and just very well received. So at this point, more or less all the families were onboarding as clients or entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial in nature.
Yeah, and I like that. And I think you're taking a whole different approach where, many people try to find markets, and they try to find markets that are maybe big enough to support their business. But you found you haven't really nailed an industry, but you've nailed it in the sense that you're working with families or family businesses, but also that are entrepreneurial by nature. And I think one of the things that you've done is you also became a member of the Family Office Exchange. And has that really helped you in learning how to work with, multi-generations and other advisors in the industry?
Yeah. So, I don't know who said it, but, the eyes only see and the ears only hear what the mind is looking for. Right. And so if you don't have this awareness, so to your point, like I knew what it was, who I wanted to serve, and like having clarity from a goal perspective and really visualizing that was helpful. And then it became, how do I build out the resources myself through third parties to be able to deliver, right? But it was a commitment to do that. Prior to the Family Office Exchange, it was this CPWA, Certified Private Wealth Advisor, right? That gave me additional arrows in my quiver, so to speak, and more capability. And then the Family Office Exchange has been a tremendous, resource, improved my network, and allowed me to grow in a lot of different ways. More recently, I'm on their Integrated Wealth Advisor Council. So it's very much a who's who of those with similar values in how they serve families, not all entrepreneurial in nature, but generally, from property and casualty to tax to legal, to other, family office, personal CFO type firms.
How has that helped you integrating all those different things? Because when we think of advisors in the wealth management space, right? We're thinking of, you talked about the CFP and this CPWA, but there's also the CEPA, which I know you have in working with business owners, and they have networks there to help, as you kept referring to the third party. But you're going pretty deep other than just wealth management. You're helping with your clients with a lot of different complicated things that tie together that protect them from all different parts of their life. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's everything from risk management, coordination of a team of professionals. I mean, I think there's approach, and there's a book by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy that you may have read, Who Not How. And it's one thing for me to know enough of how. It's another thing as to how quickly I could get it done and with what level of expertise, right? And that's where the network becomes important. And so I think it's very much the entrepreneurial approach of like, what do we need to contend with? What problem needs to be solved? And how do we build a team around it to get that done? Right. And that's very much our focus today. And I think that's why we've been able to scale pretty quickly. Because look, it's not just me doing this. It's about me building a team around a family, from everything from psychologists, behavioral specialists as to how wealth changes things, specialty firms as it relates to captive insurance companies, banks that finance different types of insurance, aviation assets, whatnot. So
let me digress a little bit from that piece. And, you used the word complexity or breaking through. And then you talked about the book that Dan wrote. Like, have you participated in the strategic coach in your career?
I have.
This language, I did it back in my career. So tell me some of the things you learned from that. Did that help you speed up your growth as an entrepreneur?
I think so, for sure. So I did it very early on. But I mean, it was a great experience. I've thought about going back. I'm a huge proponent of coaches. Have two today from an accountability perspective, from just a general business perspective. So, everything from unique ability to your point, the ceiling complexity, and just there's as you go down this journey right outside of the financial advisory world, but as an entrepreneur, it could be a pretty isolating existence, right? And the way you live your day to day and think and work and operate is much different than most others. So, relationship and community, I think in anything in life is of the utmost importance. So it was certainly that and many more things. And as much as I'm not in the program, I'm constantly digesting as much material from that and other thought leaders as possible.
Yeah, but it was really great it's nice to see tracks of things that people have used in their life. And I used two of them. But when you think of, the network and what you're building and being an entrepreneur, one of the things that he taught early on was to take what you've done and package it up and build it. And I think there's something important. I remember going once and he said, if you were in a business that you needed a license and you were able to get rid of your license, they took it away from you. Can you still make a living? Right. And what you've been able to create in the financial services industry, you could just be charging fees for everything you've done. And the fees would be different because you wouldn't be getting paid on products. But I think that's a big thing that has come from your time in the strategic coach, and it's into you and it's become just part of who you are today. So I think that's a really good thing to see in here,
No, absolutely. I mean, I think I'm very transparent with clients of like, hey, this is our intellectual capital. Let's identify who and where, who others you need on your team and where we can contribute. And, everyone's time is worthwhile, right? But how I'm compensated for it really shouldn't matter, right? If I'm fiduciary and objective in nature.
Yeah, I agree. All of this doesn't happen without education. And you said it earlier and I don't know how many people caught it of the listeners here, but you said you needed to use some of your intern years to be able to use your CFP designation because you got it really young. But then you went on to get your CPWA, which you spoke about, the CEPA, CLU, ChFC, and constantly using coaches and just really studying your craft. Is that just something that has always been part of you, or did you pick that up somewhere where you said, I'm going to be out, I'm going to educate myself as much as I possibly can in this industry?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to be a lifelong learner. I mean, as a kid in school, things were a lot different. Not all subjects I loved. So I was either the best kid in the class. I'd walk by the English department and four of the teachers loved me and they're sitting having lunch. And, Miss So-and-so has the worst things to say about Matt Saul. Like, well, what's missing here? So I always was a lifelong learner. That grew more. And look, some of that is in dedicated programs, credentialing, right? Where I see them a value and bring value to clients, but also it's just, how I spend my weekends, right? I try, if you want to be a resource and a trusted expert to people and be their eyes and ears, just as they are in their business to others, right? You have to have some understanding of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the industry, what are other firms doing, right? What else is available to best serve. So, that continues to be my thought on it.
I love it. When you think of your day to day today, it's very different than it was in the past, and your cases are getting more complex. So what is the day to day like for you now?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think it's two elements. There's, if you think of a professional athlete, right? It's not just my work day, right? It's everything that goes in behind that. So I have the energy to lead my staff, myself, right? My clients. So, I've been very intentional about everything. And, and if you're a sports star, as an example, you're an athlete, like you think of the amount of time professional athletes spend off the court or off the field, right? So, there's a team of professionals around me, from coaches to different physicians, to trainers, to yoga, to get me to the place I need to be mentally, physically, to continue to grow and develop and evolve to my best self. I think the biggest things that's changed as to when I'm at work, right? And before I go there, I'd also say that includes downtime and rest, right? As an entrepreneur and as an advisor, what clients and families want is for me to be creatively thinking about their situation, where we can improve it, right? What are the risks out there that we may be missing, right? So I'm up at night, we're critically thinking about these things so they're best protected. So, having a quiet mind to be able to do that, I think today is my biggest challenge. As you become more successful, time is your most precious resource and commodity, right? And so you're constantly trying to keep more of it. And it's not just the time you do have, it's the intention behind your time. So I intentionally schedule my days and weeks to give myself the quiet time to be thinking, right? Which is just as imperative as me being in front of a client, as an example.
No, I asked the question because I knew some of this, not all of it. But what I appreciate is when we talk about being truly a corporate athlete, you're not just doing it, you're living it. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that in life. And obviously, we say health is wealth, but you're talking about being prepared to perform on a day-to-day basis. And you can't do that if you're not healthy and focused to do that.
Yeah, I think it's also, look, there's the physical element, but then there's also the mental element. And if you're at all incongruent with what you're bringing to market, who you are, right, how you're executing, we are our biggest enemies mentally, right? So, how do you avoid that? And for me, it's to be as congruent as possible, and definitely deliver.
I love it. What are some of the challenges you're running into today?
It's interesting. I don't know if it was a podcast. It could have been something from Dan, but it was, if you have money to fix a problem, you don't have a problem. It might have just been yesterday I heard this, right? So, look, I've been pretty fortunate and blessed. So I have my headaches, but when I do have a headache, it's usually a joke that comes shortly after of, gee, it's nice to have first world problems, or it's nice to have champagne problems, right? So, most of my biggest challenge today is focusing my time in the most critical areas possible and eliminating as much distraction, right? There's so much distraction that exists in the world. And it's the 80-20 rule. And, 80% of your results come from 20% of your input, right? And it's not just in time, it's in intention, right? And where your energy and direction lies. And as you continue to grow, that 80 changes, right? So it becomes constantly eliminating certain ways of thinking, your old identity, and growing into a new identity, and assimilating really to a network around you as you elevate professionally and who you are as a person. And one of the things I enjoy most about the entrepreneurs I work with is they're inspiring, right? I genuinely, they're friends. I learn from them, right? We, and we view each other in a very similar regard, which is special.
Yeah. I love the inspiring part. Now, I knowing you're definitely probably have there's just as much inspiration on them as they have on you. But what are you thinking about next for yourself? Is it what you're doing? Because it sounds like you're pretty dialed in right now.
Yeah, I think it becomes, I've built a team and we have a legacy wealth management practice, right? It becomes serving, keeping our promises to everyone we've made them to and serve them, right? And also continue to grow and scale so that as we make promises to the families and business owners we're onboarding, that we have the core competencies and deliverables in-house, right? And then have the right partnerships to serve them. Because, if you've seen one family or business owner, you've seen one family or business owner, right? Like we're all unique beings, particularly in that realm. And so it becomes a lot of my time, frankly, is focused on what their needs are, evaluating other providers that can complement and serve them. Because I have the expertise and the ability to do it. And just as they hire the best they can in other elements of their business, as they become more successful, there's a lot more stuff, right? And there's a lot more outside of their total focus, which is their business, as it relates to all their personal assets and planning.
Well, I think that's also a big part of your job is doing the due diligence on those outside people that are being put in front of your clients. And you're probably, from some of your clients, you're probably gaining some of those outside professionals that you've met through them that become part of your team, correct?
Right. Absolutely. It's very much a collaborative effort, right? It's what do we know collectively? What does the rest of their network know? And who do we go to for what, frankly? Right. And navigate that.
Yeah. And get different people with different specialties around you. I love that. Like building a team, but just a team of third parties. Matt, the one thing I want to ask before we close is, everyone starts out in this business as truly a generalist. And, I would say that in the model that we're in, more people are being a little bit more than just the generalists. We're using the, planning and doing both sides of the, the protection and the investment side. And you were doing that and doing that really well, and obviously still doing that. But you made a decision at some point to really now take it to a different market and do that. What hit you? Was it just that you had one client like that and you love the complexity of it? or what came to you to make you make that decision to do that?
Yeah, no, it's twofold. I was fortunate enough to go on journeys, and in a way be asked to deliver, right, in a different way than most of the wealth management community does. And as, clients grew and as their needs grew, to that adage of like, who, not how, right? Like they needed someone to help get certain things done. And, I think a lot of people are in some instances closed-minded as to, okay, well, this is my box. And if it fits my box, yes, I can deliver, as opposed to saying, hey, thinking more like a problem solver, frankly. And so, it was by way of those journeys that I was able to grow from a confidence, capability perspective, broaden my understanding of what their world looks like and where we can help. So I think that was a big part of it. And then I think, there's a huge opportunity in just an underserved market, right? And then there was this common thread of, okay, we share the same identity. We think the same way. I understand how you're thinking about these, and I can anticipate, what you need to solve this in a way that most others in our community, a client may be frustrated by. Right. So it was very much a yes attitude. And then as I said, yes, I had to get these things done. And at this stage, frankly, look, it brings me all the energy in the world. Right. As they grow, I grow, not just from like a business perspective, but from a fulfillment perspective. So for most of them, I tell them, look, I'm here to give you the capability, the expertise, the information to make the best decisions, but we ride shotgun, right? So it's very much a collaborative partnership. And yeah, it became more fun and more creative.
Oh, I love it. And listen, Matt, when I think of the industry and I think back to watching advisors grow through their business, most of the time, not many of them thought they were entrepreneurs or truly CEOs and building distribution models. And I'm watching more and more of that happen. But I really appreciate your approach and how you've truly become an entrepreneur, and you're pushing an industry to be more entrepreneurial. And congratulations on that. I love what you said earlier, probably in the middle of the show, how you're living the life of a corporate athlete / entrepreneur and taking care of yourself, but you're taking care of yourself not only for yourself, but to be more prepared to do the right things for your clients and help them continue to grow. So obviously it gives more time to you, but it also gives more time to them. So I keep up the great work. Super proud of you. It's nice.
Thank you.
It's nice to watch the journey and to see you take, small steps and continue to get those big wins. And, I can't wait to have you back in 5 years so you can share exactly where you are in your business now, because I know that that journey is going to be pretty amazing to watch. So congratulations on that.
No, I appreciate it very much. And look, not to harp on this who, not how, you think I'd be getting paid to talk about the book, but, look, you've been a who for me, as the firm has been, and there's, and you're a large part of how we've gotten to where we have. And, I appreciate that. So thank you.
You got it, Matt. Well, you have the best day, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks again for being on the show today. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203 513-6000.